Solutions have problems. Math books have problems. You look in the back and there's the solution. Predicaments don't have solutions. We just live with them. We've all been given a predicament. We've been given a terminal diagnosis.
Thing you will learn, if anybody out there has ever been in trouble with the law, the first thing you learn about the law is amoral, first of all. It really is. It's all about narrative. Facts are not important. Facts are less important than narrative. So in the media, and especially in alternative media like YouTube, there's people out there that are always trying to tweak the narrative. And there's something about that. There's something about trying to tweak the narrative that annoys me. That's annoying to me. So I'm always trying to find, I'm always trying to expose the bullshit and cut to the chase, the real motivations. Now, having said all that, on my last video, extinction not likely, there's a dude named McPherson who has been going around for a number of years saying that the mankind is going to be extinct in about 9 years from now. And this is because of a methane feedback loop in the Arctic that's going to supposedly cause runaway global warming. The Earth's temperature is going to rise by 10 degrees and basically wipe out all life on, or most of life on Earth. And mankind is going to be, or humankind, however you want to say it, is going to become extinct in 9 years. I've also seen this on Russian television. Okay, they are repeating this theme. In this last video, McPherson let out a couple of interesting little facts about his life that are kind of important. He said that he is an anarchist.
University of Arizona. So I think actually I was really quite good at teaching. I think my students were learning empathy. I used anarchism in my classrooms. It's not a bad thing. Chaos is the absence of rules. Anarchy is the absence of rulers. Just to be clear. Anarchism means taking responsibility for yourself and for your neighbors, human and otherwise. So I was modeling anarchism in my classrooms, and as it turns out, the deep state didn't really appreciate that.
Well, how the fuck does that kind of thinking fit in with some sort of organized response to the environment, to the rapidly disappearing ecosystems? Wouldn't a better response to that be socialism of some kind or another? But no, he's an anarchist. So here we have somebody who is a self-proclaimed anarchist pushing the concept of runaway global warming due to a methane feedback loop, and mankind is going to be dead in 9 years. What does that do? What does that narrative? I've been thinking about this for a while. What does that narrative do? Why is that narrative being pushed by Russian television? Why is that narrative being pushed by McPherson? Is it true? I mean, there's a lot of argument back and forth about whether it's really true or not. It might be true, it might not. But why is it important? Because the general population was to start to believe that humankind is really going to be extinct in 9 years, that might produce some anarchy, some chaos. It's known that Vladimir Putin wanted to hijack this past presidential election and get Donald Trump in the White House. And then, after Donald Trump was elected, to cause Donald Trump as much embarrassment as possible, to maybe even get him impeached, in order to do nothing but create chaos, to create anarchy. Rex Tillerson, ex-CEO of ExxonMobil, is now the Secretary of State, Russia's favorite guy on the planet, given the Medal of Friendship by Vladimir Putin himself. Right? He's in the middle of all that. What does he got to do with any of this? Well, the simple truth is that it's been known for a number of years. You can look at some of my past videos that America was slated to become the top producer of oil in the world by 2020. That America has more oil than Saudi Arabia under the lower 48 contiguous United States, but you got to use fracking to get it. But we've got more oil than that, and other reserves, and they just found this huge reserve in another part of Alaska. I believe ExxonMobil found it. Interesting. There's a big oil deal with Russia. Who benefits when America devolves into anarchy? Anarchy is a beautiful environment when you are in the business of raping the earth of its natural resources. Because the worst thing you want to have to deal with when you are raping the earth is a motherfucking democracy. A functioning, thriving, healthy democracy. Because the people get together and think, well, wait a minute, do we really want all this destruction? Do we really want the destruction of the environment? And the answer is overwhelmingly no, we don't. So we got to get rid of that pesky democracy. We have to get rid of that pesky organization. And that's really what it boils down to. That's what that runaway global warming, extinction of humankind in 9 years, coming from a man who is a self-avowed anarchist, McPherson, a man who said that he had been somehow or another harassed by the National Security Agency. Man was somehow harassed by the National Security Agency. He keeps telling this story where somebody came up to him and apologized. Oh, I'm sorry for all the shit that I did to you when we were harassing you, when the National Security Agency was harassing you. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, man. Let's connect some dots here. First of all, the whole anarcho-syndicalist thing, that burn it down, it's the burn it down burners. The burn it down people, the people who want to burn down the system. You can see one of my last videos called some dude named Dugan is behind that, apparently. You got to see Glenn Beck Connects the Dots, one of my last videos, where he basically says it's these burn it down people. They want to burn down the system. They want chaos. They want anarchy.
He points out that the Jason Group at the Pentagon, and these are the smartest people in the room, the Jason Group, in a report to be published later this year, finds that rather than going Venus, Earth will instead go Mars. Because of abrupt climate change leading to the catastrophic meltdown of the world's 440-some nuclear power facilities, that ionizing radiation is going to go up into the atmosphere, strip away the atmosphere. So unlike Venus, which has a very heavy atmosphere and keeps the temperature at about 462 degrees Celsius, we're going to more closely resemble Mars. And the date he listed was 2054. That's not long.
Look at the third world. Look at Africa. You know, Africa's like Mad Max land, a lot of it. You know, these huge cities where it's just, you know, I mean, my God. And these people these anarchists are pushing for that, are trying to create that here in the United States for no other reason than to get these natural resources that are under everybody's feet as cheaply as they possibly can. So that's where all this narrative comes from, you know, because, I don't know, if it's a runaway effect and there's nothing you can do about it, if we're doomed anyway, well, you might as well just do whatever. Oh, here's the other thing about the McPherson thing. Coffee in Belize is one of the videos that I reference, you know, and he's talking about, well, if we stopped polluting today, if we shut down the whole omnicidal engine, as he calls it, heat engine today, it's worse because then the sulfides and the particulates fall out of the air, and you don't have aerosol shading. And if you don't have the aerosol shading, well, then the atmosphere heats up, you know, that much faster, 2 to 3 degrees within a matter of weeks, and we all perish anyway. So when you start reading between the lines and listening to the narrative, it's like, you know, Okie Finoki out there on the farm is saying to himself, is watching this video and saying to himself, well, goddamn, if that's true, then maybe we shouldn't have all those environmental controls on the coal-fired power plants and all those environmental controls on my diesel truck and stuff. You know what I mean? Maybe we need more particulates in the atmosphere, so maybe we...
So the fossil fuel industry realizes it has an enormous problem.
Bill O'Keefe is Executive Vice President of the American Petroleum Institute. He's also a board member of the Global Climate Coalition, made up of oil and electric companies, automakers, and others.
We believed it was a war on oil. They had an off-oil agenda. Climate change was part of that.
I think that it's unfortunate that the science is so distorted and misstated. And without
the science is complicated, and there are lots of different factors, so you really have to understand the whole picture.
There is a natural variability that has nothing to do with man.
Climate is changing naturally.
It has to do with sunspots, it has to do with the wobble of the earth.
And so it's not too difficult to persuade some of the public that we really don't know for sure. And so maybe let's wait a while. We need to have more proof.
We need more data. The science isn't there to make that determination.
There is no need for us to rush to this kind of judgment to respond.
Others put out ads saying more pollution is going to be good for us.
A doubling of the CO2 content of the atmosphere will produce a tremendous greening of planet Earth.
CO2 is a benefit to plant life. It's increasing the bounty and the productivity of the planet, our ability to feed populations in this world.
What you're seeing here from the coal industry is perfectly analogous to what the tobacco industry used to do. They refuse to change, refuse to shift, and they're trying to convince us that it's actually good for us, the way they used to say, luckies make you healthy.
So there's this hope that as the science continues to emerge, the public will become increasingly aware, and our political leaders will solve this problem.
We took all those environmental controls off, we'd be better off, right? It's bullshit. McPherson is working for the bad guys. Let me just spell it out for you. McPherson is working for the fucking bad guys. You know? Because he's like, then people have complained, he's like, you know, McPherson is like a climate denier on fucking steroids. If what he's saying is true, then it fucking doesn't matter. He's promoting anarchy and more pollution. He's not saying that. He's saying, well, you might as well get fucked up and drink and, you know, tell your mama you love her, because tomorrow you might be dead, right? It's bullshit. You know, and even if that's true, you know, I mean, I'm one of them kind of guys that's like, hey, in a way, I want to tell McPherson, I'm like, dude, pull yourself together. I mean, my heart goes out to the guy, man. You don't really, the guy is obviously emotionally, distraught. He's distraught, and you don't want to beat up on a guy who's emotionally distraught, who's going through some shit. You don't want to beat up on a guy like that. I don't want to beat up on the guy, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to fucking, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to rub it in. I don't want to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm, you know, dude, really, I mean, if he's for real, if he's on the level, if McPherson's on the level, you know what I mean? Which he very well may not be. But if he's on the level, you know, it's like, yeah, man, let me give you a hug, bro. You know, yeah, it's, you know, it sucks, man. Yeah, you know, it's scary, and it's, you know, and yeah, I get it. You know, I do. I get it. But at this point, you know, it's time for the adults in the room to figure out what the fuck we're gonna do next. And to really figure out just exactly what's gonna happen next. Because that's not entirely clear. There are two distinct camps. One camp says that we're going to boil to death, that we're going to turn into Venus. And the other camp says, no, we're going to have a fucking ice age. Okay, who's right? And my point is, you know, my contention is that we're going to, by September of this year, 2017, we're going to have a pretty good indication of where we're headed. They said we're in a grand solar minimum. We're at the end of the fucking interglacial period. We're standing on the precipice of the end of an interglacial period, staring, you know, looking at perhaps another glacial period, you know, coming at us. Some have suggested that before every glacial period, there has been a spike in CO2 levels, which suggests to me, and furthermore, methane calthrate has been found in Antarctic ice cores, which tells me that methane gas precipitated from the sky, bound in ice. So, which says to me that there may be a period before the start of every glacial period, there may be a period of global warming because of carbon dioxide release. You have to see my previous vlog about that. 1988, what was it? Ice Age 1998. I'm sorry, Ice Age 1988, something or another. So if there's a period of global warming due to, you know, excessive CO2, then there might be an indicator that there's also a runaway methane cycle that happens just before these glacial periods. That might be part of the formula. This might be something that happens all the time. By the way, quick note here.
There have been changes in the Arctic, in the permafrost, in terms of the temperature over time, not only in the shallow layers near the surface, but at 10, 20, and 50 meter depths, you're seeing changes that are even more rapid. That indicates that not only is there heating near the surface, but that this heat is being transported to depth very efficiently.
How deep the permafrost is warming? Well, biological action, okay. The Earth is, you know, it has an insulating property. It's conductive. It can be modeled as not a superconductor, but it can be modeled as a perfect conductor in some senses. You know, if you're doing lightning research and things like that. But the Earth is also a pretty good insulator. So when you have a certain amount of permafrost melts, and you begin that process of the biological action, working on that biotic material, that produces heat. So down at depth, that may be a runaway cycle in and of itself, that down below the freezing temperatures, where there's a layer of insulation there, you have the heat being produced from this biological activity, this anaerobic biological activity that produces this methane. So, you know, and it, you know, it's another, you know, runaway process that might not be, you know, that we might not be able to stop, that we might just not be able to do anything about.
Happening now, and the problem here is it's accelerating. once it starts generating, through this process or any of the other ones I talk about, once those processes generate more CO2 than we do, it won't matter if we stop completely. It's going to keep going. These are positive feedback loops.
You know, how much methane we're talking about, you know, it's who knows. But this may be something that happens regularly, like every 100,000 years, right? Every interglacial period ends with a runaway methane cycle. I mean, that might just be how the cookie crumbles, how this shit rolls. We're gonna find out. Shit, there was something else I was gonna show you right there. Oh, the other thing too is, you know, there's different estimates about how much methane there is in the Arctic. You know, some estimates, you know, the Wikipedia, kill me, the Wikipedia estimate is 400 gigatons. And supposedly there's 800 gigatons in the atmosphere right now as we speak. So if all of that 400 gigatons of methane were released, that would be a grand
remaking the landscape and is another manifestation, we believe, of climate impacts in that part of the world.
In the minute and a half or so that we have left, did I understand you to say that when you said 1,500 billion tons of carbon up there, that you were talking about the land masses, the permafrost and those kind of things? Does that include any methane that may be at the bottom of the Arctic Sea, the Arctic Ocean?
No, that estimate includes only what we would call soil organic matter that has been frozen and is trapped in the peats and the permafrost.
Do we have any
soils.
sense of how much might be in the ocean, or is that not an issue?
There are thought to be vast amounts of methane hydrates and other such components stored not only in the subsurface of the oceans, but also beneath land. And in fact, there is a good deal of energy exploration that's looking at this unconventional capacity. And there I think you're talking about tens of thousands of billions of metric tons of methane potential.
Wow, tens of thousands of billions of tons in the context of we've burned, what did you say, 300 billion tons since 1850 roughly?
Approximately 350 billion metric tons, yes. And that burning of the fossil fuels combined with other human activities is thought by the IPCC to have been extremely likely to be the dominant cause of the warming and the other changes that we've been seeing since the mid-20th century.
Remarkable. Dr. Charles Miller, thank you so much for dropping by tonight. Thank you.
So the methane in the atmosphere, the total amount of methane in the atmosphere, in the current atmosphere, it's about 5 gigatons. The amount of carbon preserved in form of methane in the subarctic shelf is approximately from hundreds to thousands of gigatons. And of course, it's only 1% of that amount is required to double the atmospheric burden of methane.
In the atmosphere right now as we speak. So if all of that 400 gigatons of methane were released, that would be a grand total of 1,200 gigatons of carbon in the atmosphere. Which is less than what was released during the Permian extinction. But still, there's 800 gigatons in the atmosphere, and is it. So you're talking about 1.5 times whatever we have now. So what's the parts per million now? You know, and what's the parts per million going to be with, you know, times 1.5? So, you know, they say, well, we're past the point of no return. Oh, okay. Past the point of no return.
But to destabilize 1% of this carbon pool, I think it's not much effort needed, considering that the state of permafrost and the amount of methane currently involved. Because what divides this methane from the atmosphere is a very shallow water column and a weakening permafrost, which is losing its ability to seal, to serve as a seal. And this is, I think it's not a matter of thousands of years, it's a matter of decades, I think. Maybe at most 100 years, but I think it's a matter of decades.
I believe it would happen anytime.
It might potentially happen because just because this area is very seismically and tectonically active, and there was some investigation that the tectonic activity is increasing. And the seismic activity is, what is seismic activity? It's destabilization of these grounds. It's just mechanical forcing destabilization. So it's additional pathways for this methane to be escaped. And many factors, I would list you many factors that might, that are very convenient and convincing for us, so that might happen. Not any time. I think any time sounds like it might happen today. It might happen tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. You think so?